Hello everyone, I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to The Audio Analyst. Those of you who follow the channel will recall that I spent the better part of 4 days in late July absorbing the musical riches presented in the big room at GTT Audio in Long Valley, New Jersey. The room, some 20 feet wide, 35 feet long, and 12 feet tall, houses some of the finest audio gear on planet Earth set up and dialed in that magnificent space. I have included the detailed list of all components included in that world-class system in today's description section. My report on that visit came with last August 4th's episode 186, Vivid Audio's Moya M1 speaker, and the GTT audio presentation of episode 107 from August 13th includes a very informative discussion among the two doctors David Robinson and myself. My episode is linked here, and links to both are included in today's description section. To more widely publicize this amazing loudspeaker, GTT announced that a 3-day press event would be held in Long Valley from September 11th through 13th. Not only would the invited members of the press have the opportunity to witness and write about this Sui Generous loudspeaker driven by this world-class system, but we would get to spend time with its creator, legendary loudspeaker designer Laurence Dickie, and International Marketing and Sales Director for Vivid Audio and Mola, Ewald Verkerk. Though I had enjoyed an extended listening experience to the system less than 2 months ago, the opportunity to spend time chatting with Dick, Laurence Dickie's preferred nickname, was a prospect that I was not going to pass up. Those of you who have been around this game for any length of time will know the name and understand why I refer to Dick as Maestro Dickie. For those unfamiliar with his accomplishments over the past 4+ decades, let me briefly recap. His first acknowledged contribution came in 1984, just 2 years after he started at the renowned UK speaker manufacturer Bowers & Wilkins. Taking inspiration from the dividers used inside a cardboard wine carton to keep the bottles separated, he implemented the idea as a unique and extremely effective way to stiffen and reduce the cabinet interactions with the Matrix series of loudspeakers. Interestingly enough, I've still got my original Matrix 1 monitors, which still impress every listener that I play them for to this day. I simply cannot part with them. It should come as no surprise that I have followed Dick's work since the launch of the Matrix series of B&W loudspeakers. His next major accomplishment came in 1993, with the introduction of one of, if not, the most iconic loudspeaker ever created, the B&W Nautilus. With Nautilus, he introduced us to the use of tapered tube loading. Those visually arresting trailing tapered tube vents, aside from the highly distinctive look that they afforded Nautilus, were designed to absorb rather than just contain the equal and opposite backwave from the drivers. By coupling the rear of the driver to a tube that both narrows exponentially and is filled with a naturally increasingly compressed damping material, by the time the backwave reaches the end of the tube, it is completely dissipated and absorbed. As a result, none of the backwave can be reflected back into the diaphragm to contribute distortions. Then, with the launch of Vivid here in the US at an event held at the Mirage Hotel during CES 2008, I was fortunate enough to have some time to chat with Dick, where he shared some stories about the creation of Nautilus after we heard the original Vivid Audio Giya G1 loudspeaker. I next had occasion to have first-hand experience with his latest Vivid designs in February of 2017 during the North American launch of the Vivid Audio Giya G1 Spirit loudspeaker held in the greater Chicago area. That visit led to my full review of the Spirit, which was published in the Absolute Sound in the fall of 2018. But during the GTT press event, Dick and I recorded a conversation about what led to the implementation of his reaction canceling compliant mounting of the compound woofers throughout the Giya range of products, as well as with this amazing new Sui Generous loudspeaker, the Moya M1. Further, he explains how that allows for the use of the remarkably stiff and rigid, yet comparatively light, carbon-reinforced balsa-cored vacuum-infused sandwich composite used for their sculpted enclosures. Here is our conversation. Welcome, everybody. Today we have a very special guest. Laurence Dickie from Vivid is here. And if you've been around this industry at all, like I have, you'll understand this guy has done some amazing things over time. In the mid-'80s at B&W, he brought us Matrix. And I told you the other day, I still have my Matrix ones. I can't get rid of them. In the early 90s, probably the most iconic loudspeaker in the history of our industry, the Nautilus, with the introduction of the tapered tube to dissipate the back pressure on drivers. Vivid came about, I think, 2004. It was introduced.
That's right. We first went into production in 2004.
Came into the United States around 2008. I was there at the launch at the Mirage with you. We had a wonderful time there. And, you know, we spoke on the GTT audio channel the other day about the catenary designs, which I thought was very important and I wanted to do. And I'll put a link to that in today's episode when it comes up. But today, can you talk about the reaction cancellation thing and how you got there and why? I think it's really important to what's going on with the Vivid loudspeakers.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's important to first of all explain why reaction forces have to be cancelled.
Absolutely.
And
there's this guy named Newton who has a third one.
He wasn't a lawyer, but he had three very important laws. The third, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, is the one that's relevant to this particular item. So when the force that acts on the voice coil and moves the diaphragm forward is created, so an equal and opposite force is imparted onto the magnet. Normally, because the magnet's 100 times or so heavier than the diaphragm, the actual amplitude of the vibration is very, very small. And so the actual sound coming from the magnet would be minuscule and not a problem if it was the full extent of the situation. But of course, in reality, most loudspeakers are mounted in a cabinet. And the cabinet acts like a sounding board, and in just the same way as the body of a guitar or fiddle makes the sound of the string audible, so the sound of the vibrating cabinet makes the reaction forces from the magnet audible. Again, on its own, that wouldn't be a problem, but unfortunately the cabinet is subject to all sorts of structural modal vibrations, which means that the frequency response of that sound would be all over the place. Very coloured, and it would introduce time smearing and all sorts of horrors. Yeah. The solution for a straightforward mid or high driver is very, very simple. You just have to decouple it. And by that, I mean you have to suspend it on some sort of compliant support and just make sure that the resonant frequency of the driver on that compliant support is well below the frequency of interest. So we use silicone O-rings on all our products between the driver and the absorber horn and between the driver and the enclosure. And in so doing, we minimize that sort of conducted vibration. So that's all very well and good for mid and high frequency drivers, as I say, but the real challenge comes with the bass. If you have a single bass unit and you try and decouple it from the cabinet, unfortunately what happens, the situation is the magnet of the bass unit is usually enormously heavy. In our Giya G1 or Moya, the C225 magnet is about 11 kilos, and it's sitting, relative to the front plane of the driver, the rim, the surround of the driver. It's that sort of distance. 11 kilos at that distance is supplying quite a substantial torque.
Sure.
To suspend the driver on a rubber that is soft enough to have a low enough resonant frequency to do the decoupling job properly means that it doesn't have enough stiffness to support the magnet. Yeah. Exactly. So the driver would just basically flop out. The solution, the complete solution, it's ever so simple. You just have a pair of drivers and join the magnets up with a steel bar. And then the reaction forces are transmitted through that steel bar and they completely cancel. And not only is it a completely effective way of removing those reaction forces, but it also happens to provide a very effective way of supporting the two magnets mechanically, because they no longer do that. There's the tie bar. So it's a really effective way of dealing with...
In a way, it's elegantly simple,
Absolutely.
And it really is an effective method.
Well, and of course, we're not the first people to use reaction cancelling in a product. There are all manner of horizontally opposed piston engines out there which do exactly the same thing. So yeah, it's well known, terribly effective. Not used that much on loudspeakers. There are quite a few subwoofers that have used it. Not so many full range loudspeakers. At Vivid, we do it in nearly all our products.
Yeah. Now, one of the advantages that this allows you is to reduce the mass of your cabinets, of your baffles and everything, because you keep them very stiff to contain the air compression changes in the cabinetry.
Yeah.
But they don't have to be massive because all that cancellation is handled by the structure of the opposing drivers themselves. Yeah. Now, talk about the skins that you guys use and how that works.
Yeah, well, you've really described it very completely there. The purpose of the cabinet is to contain the air pressure of the rearward firing wave that comes out of the loudspeaker. So the purpose of the cabinet is really, it's like a pressure vessel, and indeed that term has been used in some designs, a pressure vessel, and so it has to be stiff. It also needs to have it will have resonant modes, because inevitably the mass of the panels reacts with the stiffness of the panels, and they will have resonant modes.
Some modes.
And you want those to be as far out of band as possible. So stiff but light is the recipe that we're looking for.
Well, I mean, when I had the Giya G1 Spirit, two of us could carry them. I mean, they're like 150 pounds or so. They're amazingly light. And the bottom end, and the reason I brought this up is the bass performance from Moya it's not world class. It is sui generous. It is completely unbelievable. I was telling you this yesterday that, a speaker that imposing in size, which really, when you see it, it's not, I mean, the pictures look big, but when you see it, it's really not quite that dramatic. But the bass performance from that thing, you get subtlety, nuance, the shading and things in the microdynamic realm and the texture of the bass. But yet, when you play a deep organ piece, the room pressurizes. You get both of those in the same cabinet, in the same design, and that's why I wanted you to go into this. So,
thanks.
Go on a little more, and I'll shut up a little bit here.
Well, no, it's fine. Thank you for your compliments. So obviously, that is what we're seeking to achieve: an absolutely clean bottom end performance.
It's fabulous.
It's the principle that runs through all our through all of the ranges of all of the products is a freedom from resonance and reflection. And in the bass, yes, it means freedom from internal resonance, which we deal with, of course, with the old exponential tube. But yes, structural modes, as I say, out of band, if you don't mind, get them out. And of course, the way that we actually create our light, stiff cabinets is to use, as I said, vacuum-infused composite. So you have two skins of high tensile material. In all our other products, it was just glass, e-glass, pretty as stiff as aluminium. But in Moya, we've gotten that extra step, and we've moved to a combination of glass and carbon. So the very outer skins are carbon, but the core is low density. There are a variety of materials you can choose. Synthetic foams, balsa wood. There are a range of material, but the function is always the same. It's a low-density core that merely serves the purpose of keeping these two skins apart, because to get beam stiffness, you need to move the tensile elements as far apart as possible, and that way you achieve that result. So vacuum-infused composites, again, in nearly all our products. Very effective, because the thing about vacuum infusion is it minimises the amount of actual resin, which is good for everything. It's good for the planet, good for cost. and it keeps the weight down.
Yeah.
The resin, we mustn't forget that, we talk about glass reinforced plastic. That's actually a misnomer. What you should really say is plastic bonded glass, because it's there just as a glue. It really is just a glue, and the less of it you can have, the better. And vacuum infusion is absolutely the answer to that.
Well, the thing that strikes me, and I think many people who have followed your work might get this, but Nautilus took that tapered tube thing and made it obvious why it worked. And to me, when I had the opportunity to review the Spirit, I said it seemed to be the logical extension of that approach. And Moya is, to me, just the next logical extension. The DNA is there of that tapered tube, the thing, and it's such an incredible speaker. I mean, we talked yesterday. You pick an attribute you want to talk about with speakers. This is a 5-way device. There is no hint of crossovers. None. I mean, we're hearing a coherent voice and a massive speaker that, when you walk into the room, you're going to go, oh, wow, that's a speaker. Holy cow. And you sit down and you don't hear a speaker. I guarantee you, if I were to take people into a room with a blindfold on, they could not find the speakers by sound. They could walk around and run into them. Yeah. But the amazing thing is a speaker that imposing completely vanishes because of all the technology you've used. And I wish I could afford a pair, but I get where you're going with this. And the thing is, I've mentioned before, David Robinson and I talked about it. You've taken, we all expected at some point we would get to, we've watched this parade of resolution and transparency move over since the 70s. But the leap forward that I heard with Moya was more than just unexpected. It was, it's like, holy crap, we're here. This is amazing.
It's perhaps not right for me to admit, but even I'm surprised. It's more than just a big speaker. It is interesting how having created a loudspeaker with that much radiation area for the bottom end has given perspective to the mids and highs as well.
Exactly. That clarity and cleanliness and the texture and dynamics of it, it seems to give the mid-range and upper frequencies a little more breathing room. And these speakers, we've played these at 100 and some dB just for the heck of it. They're not even breathing heavy. There's no hint that they're overdriven. It's so amazing. They're absolutely wonderful speakers.
Let's not forget that the origin of the program of work which has ended up with Moya started because I was interested in making studio monitors.
Yeah,
one of the problems with my early work for the previous company was that they weren't very efficient and they weren't didn't have a very high power handling. And one of the things I did before I met Philip Guttentag in South Africa was to develop the drivers, which are pretty much exactly those that we have in Moya, for the D50 and the D26, the upper mid and the high frequency.
Yes.
Pretty much. The most important thing was to get as much flux into the gap as possible. I say originally because I wanted to produce something that could reproduce at 120 decibels. And finally, with Moya, we have a complete system that can do that.
Well, it's been an amazing experience. Maestro Dickie, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks ever so much.
I really appreciate this time. I want to thank GTT for having us all in here. Just an amazing time, sir. Thanks for your time again.
Great. Thanks.
Folks, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much.
Fascinating stuff, no? Now, I want to share just how engaging Dick is when he is talking about his passion for audio. Here is just a short snippet of part of his presentation during this press event, which shows him describing the importance of decoupling drivers from their enclosures. He is seen here addressing the crowd of journalists in the big room at GTT.
Newton's third law of motion, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So when the coil current flows, the coil experiences a force, let's say it's a forward force, and the magnet experiences an exactly equal but opposite force. The ratio of masses between the diaphragm and the magnet is about 100 to 1. So the amplitude of the vibration of the cone is about 100 times that of the magnet. On its own, the actual sound output, therefore, from the magnet will be tiny. The problem comes when you couple. Now, I should have prepared this up a little bit. The problem comes when you couple the magnet to a cabinet. To represent the vibrating magnet, I've got this little music box, and I'm going to just play it in the air like that. And now I'm going to look for a suitable surface. Oh, here we go. So, coupling this tiny vibration to the large area of the cabinet suddenly turns it into a problem. Decoupling the driver from the cabinet is an extremely effective and simple solution. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to bring a silicone O-ring, but fortunately, because I have a ponytail, I've got plenty of these things in my pocket. And it's just as effective. And so if I stick that underneath, we're pretty much back to the same as having it in free air. But if I couple it back again, a really simple and effective technique which we apply between each of these drivers and the cabinet and the horn, the absorber horn that I previously mentioned behind. They all have silicone trapped between the driver and the respective part.
Big fun, right? Now, for you to get a clearer sense of just how significant this new Vivid flagship loudspeaker, the Moya M1, is, and the benchmark it sets with its unparalleled performance, please see my episode 186, focusing on the discussion Bill Parrish and I had during my extended listen and visit to GTT back in July. As previously mentioned, that episode is linked here and in today's description section. My deepest appreciation to Bill Parrish and Dick Diamond of GTT Audio, Ewald Verkerk, International Marketing and Sales Director for Vivid Audio and Mola Mola, and especially to Maestro Laurence Dickie for their motivation to sponsor this event, their amazing enthusiasm for our industry, their hospitality, and their willingness to share their time to allow me to be able to present this material to you. As always, thank you for taking the time to drop by today. Further information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.